The Kesari patrol moved through the rain-soaked village, searchlights cutting the fog. One soldier stumbled over a body, his own kin, throat opened by a blade that left no energy signature.
Commander, this wound, it's not plasma, not kinetic. It's almost like it was made with a sharpened piece of metal.
Impossible. We confiscated every human weapon, every last nail. Show me the incident log.
Scans show zero manufacturing. No factories, no power tools. As if the Earth forgot how to make anything.
But in a mountain village, an old blacksmith named George kept his forge cold and waited.
They took the hammers, the tongs, the steel. They didn't take the knowing.
Beneath a loose floorboard, his calloused fingers found a small hammer and a sliver of Enville he'd hidden the day the Kesari came. That night, in a cave above the village, a spark caught, and a fire older than factories began to breathe.
The fire is lit. Now we remember.
3 months earlier, the Kesari had broadcast their decree across every frequency. All human manufacturing is banned. All tools and weapons will be seized. Compliance ensures survival.
They think taking the hammer breaks the hand.
They came for the forges first, smashing bellows, confiscating tongs, dragging away anyone who smelled of iron. In the hearth of his cold forge, George had buried a small hammer and a chip of Enville, seeds of Imadra. He waited until the patrols thinned, then climbed to a cave where the mountain hid its own shadows. With scrap metal gathered from forgotten corners, he struck the first blow, sparks leaping like startled stars.
Steel remembers, so do I.
He worked through the night, shaping a crude blade, the first weapon the Kesari had no scanner for. By dawn, the blade lay darkened in the ashes, hidden again. The occupation thought itself absolute. It wasn't. Weeks passed before word reached the young rebel Lena through village whispers. There was a man who could arm them the old way.
You are the one they call Lena. They say you want to fight.
We've been fighting with rocks and stolen batons. You expect me to trust a piece of metal you banged out in a cave?
This metal won't show up on any scanner. It's not technology, it's craft. 3,000 years of it.
He's either insane or the most dangerous man in this village.
He drew the blade across his own palm, not to bleed, but to prove that something forged in fire cut deeper than any machine's logic.
Show me how.
Before dawn, the cave forge glowed again. George placed the hammer in Lena's hands, and the iron remembered. Her first strike was weak. Her second split the scale. By the 10th, her palms blistered, and her eyes burned brighter than the steel.
Another fire kindled. The craft won't die with me.
2 weeks later, a Kesari patrol in the mountain pass never reported back. Their bodies were found with wounds that matched no energy weapon, cuts, punctures, blunt trauma from hand-forged edges.
8 soldiers dead. The enemy left spears and swords, primitive but deliberate. Where are they getting these?
Our scanners still detect zero manufacturing, no heat signatures beyond campfires. It's as if these weapons were made by hand, impossibly.
Double the patrols, sweep every structure again. If a human so much as owns a sharpened spoon, I want it confiscated.
In the cave, George taught Lena the quench, the moment when hot steel meets oil and gains a killing edge.
The Kesari can't scan for steel cooled in animal fat. They don't even know to look.
We aren't just hiding from them. We're invisible to them.
The sweeps found nothing. The Kesari scanners registered stockpiles of scrap, not weapons, but the caches grew.
Commander, perhaps we should re-examine our assumptions. These humans aren't following the patterns we know.
This craft didn't start with me. It's in your bones, a chain of fire from the first smiths who made plows into swords.
Lena brought the desperate and the defiant. They came in twos, silent, carrying nothing but the same fire she'd found.
A blade doesn't need a factory. Just iron, fire, and someone who remembers the rhythm.
The first coordinated raid fell on a Kesari supply depot. No shots fired, only silent steel and darkness.
Another attack. Weapons analysis shows primitive blades. Again, How many of these relics do they have?
Our patrols find nothing. It's as if the weapons emerge from the ground itself. We must interrogate a live captive.
The hammer falls, the steel remembers. That's the only truth that matters here.
He's building an army from rust and willpower, and it's working.
The cave became a school. A dozen anvils rang day and night, producing points and edges the Kasari couldn't imagine. But one young rebel, caught with a blade, broke under Kasari questioning, and a name surfaced. The Old Man on the Mountain.
The Old Man on the Mountain. A single blacksmith arming an insurgency. Find him before he vanishes.
Interrogation confirmed the blade came from a cave forge. The captive died, but the geography narrows. I've marked the likely ridges. I'll deploy silent scouts to track villagers at night. If anyone carries scrap or smell of smoke, we'll follow them to the heart.
In the village, the news traveled on nervous whispers. The Kasari were hunting a blacksmith. George saw the patrols tightening.
They're sniffing at the wrong cave. Time to move deeper, where the stone forgets.
He gathered Lena and the apprentices. Anvils were wrapped in cloth, hammers loaded onto backs, the heart of the forge transplanted deeper into the mountain's guts.
I've found disturbed shale near the old cave. Someone dismantled a forge in a hurry. The bird has flown, but the nest is still warm.
Kale set a trap at the abandoned forge, trip sensors, silent alarms. If the blacksmith returned, they'd know, but George never looked back. In a new hollow, deeper than moonlight could reach, a fresh fire caught, and the hammers never stopped.
He's wily, but no one eludes forever. We'll seal the upper paths and smoke him out.
Unable to find the blacksmith, the Kasari escalated, torching any structure that resembled a forge, dragging suspects into daylight. In the village square, they executed a young smith, one of George's first students, his hands still scarred from the hammer. A warning.
They killed a boy to break us. They don't understand what that does to a fire.
We'll make them regret every spark they think they've extinguished. Give me the knowledge, George. All of it.
In the deep cave, George drew a new pattern in charcoal, a masterwork sword that would carry the name of the fallen.
This blade will be forged in his memory. Every hammer blow, a prayer.
He worked with Lena beside him, passing on the secrets of tempering, the patience of the quench, the soul of the steel.
If they come for you, I'll finish it. The fire won't ever go out. I swear it.
She carries it now. The craft is safe, even if I am not.
The Kasari crackdown had claimed a life, but the martyr's blood watered the rebellion. The masterwork grew. In the deep cave, George poured his life into the masterwork blade. Every hammer blow a defiant pulse.
This steel will remember the boy's name. When they see it raised, they'll remember why we fight.
He taught Lena the final secret, the clay temper that hardens the edge into a killing geometry no scanner could classify. Above, Kale's thermal scanners finally caught a ghost, faint, persistent heat pulsing from deep within the mountain's core.
I've isolated the heat plume, multiple fires, deep in the rock. They've nested like insects in the stone.
Kale deployed a silent cordon around the suspected vent. At first light, they would breach and burn it out. The masterwork emerged from the oil bath with a hollow ring, a blade that sang of old vengeance and new hope.
One more night's work, and it will be ready. This blade will cut more than armor.
They're closing in. I can feel it. But that sword will be our answer.
The masterwork neared completion, but so did the Kasari noose. Dawn would bring the storm. At dawn, Kale's soldiers breached the deep cave. George pushed Lena aside, hid the masterwork, and faced the guns.
They still don't understand. The fire isn't in this cave. It's in her hands now.
The great blacksmith. Your little rebellion ends here, old man. Where are the other forges?
They dragged him before Commander Torek, who had waited months for this moment.
You have cost the Dominion dozens of soldiers and countless resources. Tell me where the forges are, and I may spare your life.
You can ban factories, Commander, but you cannot confiscate what lives in a craftsman's hands. Dozens of my apprentices now carry the craft. Kill me, and 100 hammers will fall tomorrow.
Commander Torek's conviction cracked. The industrial ban. It had missed the entire war.
Lock him away. Find the others. Burn every village if you must. But we will find a way to silence this.
But in a hidden crevice, Lena clutched the masterwork sword. The fire was never going out. In his cell, George found a loose nail in the mortar. He used his own weight as the hammer, the floor as the anvil.
Even in a cage, the craft follows. Steel obeys, no matter who holds the hammer.
Beyond the walls, Lena gathered the scattered apprentices. She raised the masterwork sword high, its edge singing with captured firelight.
George is a prisoner, but his fire burns in every forge we light. This sword is proof they can't kill what we've become.
Torek returned to the interrogation cell, confident he'd break the old man. George merely smiled and tapped a finger on the hidden shiv.
You are a stubborn breed, but without you, your forges will go cold. We'll find them all.
You still don't see it. You cut off the head, and the body grows 1,000 more. The fire is in humanity, not in me.
Kale demanded immediate execution. Torek refused. The blacksmith was the only bait that might draw out the network. That night, a rebel force armed with new forged blades struck a Kesari supply column, a coordinated attack that screamed resurrection. The occupation was learning a bitter truth. You couldn't kill a fire by throwing water on the brightest flame. Lena drew the masterwork sword across a crude map, tracing the prison's walls. No guns, no bombs, just hammers, crowbars, and the darkness.
We hit the east gate at the midnight patrol change. Kale will divert forces to the outpost strike. For 10 minutes, we'll be ghosts.
The rebels moved through the night, shadows carrying hand-forged steel toward the Kesari outpost. A diversion to split the guards.
Commander, an attack on the supply depot. Another primitive spear assault. I am pulling reserves the prison will hold.
In his cell, George felt the distant thud of explosions. The floor vibrated with a rhythm he had taught a dozen hands. Hope caught kindling.
Lena, they're coming. The hammer rings.
He worked the shiv into the mortar, prying a stone loose. If the door opened, he would meet them with a weapon in his hand. Kale, suspicious, doubled the guard on George's cell and stood in the corridor himself, a plasma pistol ready. The gauntlet was set.
No rescue will succeed tonight. If any human enters this block, I'll execute the blacksmith myself.
Outside, the diversionary attack flared, a bonfire of Kesari supplies. Inside, George pressed his ear to the cold stone, counting the blasts. The rebels breached the outer gate with a hand-forged crowbar, then moved through the halls like smoke. Kale sprinted to the cell block, pistol drawn. He entered the cell, aiming at the old man.
Your rebels die in the smoke. You die here.
A hand slipped through the food slot. Lena, sliding George's hammer home. He caught it with a blacksmith's instinct. Kale fired. George's hammer met the plasma bolt midair, deflecting it into the stone. Sparks like prayer.
Step away from him.
Her own hammer smashed the pistol from Kale's grip, sending him into the wall, disarmed and dazed. George stepped from the cell, and for one heartbeat, he and Lena embraced, soot-stained, alive.
You brought my hammer. That's all a man needs.
The old man was free, and every Kesari soldier knew the fire had just been fed and would burn.
George, you are bleeding. We need to get you to a medic, not a forge.
Number, the fire. It must not go out. If it dies, so does everything we've built.
They moved through the mountain's secret veins, and when George reached the cold forge, he knelt before it, like an altar. With a flint and a prayer, he struck sparks. The fire caught, and the cave breathed again.
Lena, the uprising must be the hammer. I will be the fire. You carry the sword and unite them.
Then the forge will never grow cold. I swear it.
She turned and led the rebels into the passage, their torches a river of fire flowing toward the waiting Kesari fortress. At the Kesari command post, a frantic report came. Hundreds of armed humans massing in the valley, all bearing primitive steel.
They have no machines, no armor. How are they still coming?
George, alone now, fed the fire and listened to the mountain ring with the footsteps of the soon-to-be-free. The rebel tide broke over the Kesari defensive line, swords, axes, and shields crashing against plasma fire. From his command post, Torek watched the impossible, his soldiers falling to weapons his scanners called non-existent. A rebel with a forged axe cleaved a plasma rifle in two, the steel older than the Dominion and twice as deadly.
These aren't crude tools. They are killing instruments perfected over millennia. Our scanners see nothing, because they were never meant for this.
Lena, masterwork sword raised, led the breach through the outer wall, her voice a battle cry that carried across the veil.
For George, for the forge.
The Kesari command building fell in under an hour. Its defenders broke against a tide that could not be scanned, could not be predicted. Torek was dragged from the rubble, his uniform torn, his 4 eyes hollow with disbelief.
Take me to the blacksmith. If I am to understand this defeat, I will hear it from the man who forged it.
You'll face the fire, Commander, not the sword.
The rebels marched Torek into the deep cave forge, where the fire had never been allowed to die.
You found me after all, Commander. Come. The fire is warm.
Torek's gaze fixed on the masterwork sword leaning against the anvil, a blade that 1,000 years had been waiting to sharpen.
A sword. No power cell, no targeting computer, just iron. You armed an entire rebellion with iron.
You banned factories, but you forgot that our hands remember 3,000 years of fire and steel. You cannot confiscate what lives in a craftsman's hands. The craft is not a factory, it's a heritage.
We never understood what we were fighting. We tried to break a species that remembers.
George picked up the masterwork sword and set it down before Torek, not as a threat, but as an answer.
I never fired a shot. I just kept the fire lit. That was enough.
Commander Torek understood that the Dominion had never been defeated by technology, but by a fire that had always burned in human hands. With dawn, the Kesari ships lifted from the valley, their shadows retreating from a world that no longer cowered. In the village square, George set an old iron beam on a stone and began to shape a bell, a voice for the mountain. Each blow rang a promise that the fire would never be silenced again. The first peal rolled over the rooftops, and one by one, the villagers came out of hiding. Children pressed close, eyes wide, as George lifted the masterwork sword and laid it across the anvil. An heirloom, not a weapon.
This sword belongs to the village now, but the hammer...
He paused, his old eyes finding Lena among the faces. He placed the hammer in her hands.
Keep it ringing. Teach them all. The fire is yours now, Lena.
Lena gripped the hammer, and the village felt the weight of a legacy that steel and time could never corrode. And the fire, fed by 1,000 hands yet to come, burned on. At the edge of the village, where the Kesari had made their example, a small candle burned beside a tiny anvil. George approached alone, a freshly forged iron cross in his hands, still warm from the fire he'd never let die.
I forged this cross for you, boy. Just like I taught you. Fire, hammer, patience. The fire didn't die with you. It spread through Lena, through the village, through a dozen hands you never met.
The Kesari had tried to break them by outlawing the forge, never realizing they'd awakened a fire that predated their empire. The rebellion's swords and spears became relics, enshrined with honor, museum pieces that told of iron and memory. He pressed the cross into the earth, then struck a small prayer on the anvil. A craftsman's amen. The sound echoed small, but it was the echo of 1,000 hammers, a promise that the craft would outlast the stars.
Sleep well. The fire will never go out. I swear it.
And the flame he had lit, the legacy of 3,000 years, burned on, not in museums, but in the hands of those who remembered. In the open-air forge, George gathered the village children, their small hands eager to learn the weight of a hammer.
This is for your brother. He learned at this anvil, and now you will.
The child lifted the hammer, and George's weathered hand guided the first strike, steel singing under its learned touch.
They are the real masterwork, not the sword, the souls who will carry the fire.
In a Kasari holding cell, a monitor flickered to life, a transmission from the village square.
They are teaching children. We tried to ban a wildfire, and it only spread to new kindling.
He watched the child strike sparks, the same sparks that had ignited a rebellion no scanner could ever detect.
Every human child born now will know how to make a blade. Our occupation has become their legend.
The commander lowered his head, his 4 eyes closing in the deepest defeat his species had ever known, and the hammer fell again. A cascade of sparks rising into the dark, like a galaxy of tiny forges, each one a promise. From the mountain village to the distant shores, forges bloomed where Kasari patrols once marched, each a spark of the original fire. This masterwork soared, polished but still sharp, rose on a plinth in the village hall, a pilgrimage for those who remembered the price. At his anvil, George, older now but still sure-handed, shaped a small blade, a gift for the child who had first lifted the hammer.
This one is not for war. It's for hope, and for the hands that will build the next age.
The child waited, wide-eyed, the same fire in his heart that had burned in George's since the occupation began.
Keep this. Let it remind you that iron remembers, and so must you.
He never fired a shot. He just kept the fire lit. The sparks hung like stars, the only light the Kasari could never ban. For the fire was not in the forge. It was in the hands, and hands. Remember, at dusk, George sent them all away and stood alone in the cold forge. He lifted his hammer one last time, the weight of 3,000 years in his palm. His gaze lifted to the stars, where the Kasari had fled and where humanity would one day follow. The hammer fell. The ring rolled outward, through the cave, through the village, through the valley. It was the echo of 1,000 hammers, the memory of every blade forged in defiance. It reached the graves, the silent anvils, the children stirring in their sleep. George listened until the sound faded into silence and heard only peace. He set the hammer down on the anvil for the final time. The forge went dark, but the fire had never really been in the forge. It had always been in him, in them, and it would never go out. Months later, the forge stood open to the sky, a school where any child could lift a hammer and learn the old fire. A young girl, no older than 8, stood on a wooden block before the anvil, a hammer too heavy in her small hands.
Steady. Let the hammer do the work. Now, strike where the heart is.
The hammer fell, a weak ring, but true. A tiny spark leapt as if applauding from the doorway. Lena watched, her arms crossed, smile breaking through the soot.
The fire never needed me. It just needed someone to start it.
Later, the girl quenched her first blade, a tiny knife, steam hissing into the dusk. It was just a little piece of iron, but it would outlive them all.
This one's yours. Never forget the ring of the anvil. It's the sound of us.
The fire burned eternal, in 1,000 small forges, in 1,000,000 small hands, and the hammer never really stopped. In the forge school, a long wall held the swords of the rebellion, hand-forged blades from the first crude shiv to the masterwork, each bearing a smith's name. At the center, a simple nameplate read, George, the spark that lit a revolution with nothing but iron and memory. They banned Earth's forges, so Earth remembered how to light them again. The Kasari would never understand that a factory can be burned, but a fire inside a human cannot. Humanity's deadliest arsenal was never its machines. It was its craftsmen, its grandmothers, its children who could make a blade from a nail. The hammer fell once more on a distant anvil, its ring echoing through the dark. That sound would outlast empires, outlast ships, outlast the stars. It was the echo of 3,000 years, and it would never stop. The last spark drifted up into the dark, and the world remembered, and the hammer never really stopped.